I want to bring you to the moment that you went to university. At the second year in university, when your advisor asked you to take the developmental psychology classes, right?
Yes.
And then you,
Yes.
at the beginning, you rejected that idea.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened in your mind back then that made you reluctant to take on the course?
Well, I'll tell you exactly. So my mom had been trained as a social worker, and my father, my biological father, who, you know, was very educated. He went to Harvard. He was super smart and intellectual, and you know, they became adults in the 40s and early 50s. They were Jewish. It was a very Jewish and intellectual milieu that they lived in, and so they were very taken with psychoanalysis. That was a time when people of my biological dad and my mother's background were very excited about the possibilities of psychoanalysis, and they were both went to analysis. Oh. And I was so sick of hearing about Freud and psychoanalysis, and in my mind, that's what psychology was. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not studying that. That's a case where I thought I wanted to reject what my parents were. I was like, no, that's them. That's not me. I'm not studying psychology. I'm studying literature, philosophy. It's partly that I rejected it because I was just so sick of hearing about it from them. And I was dubious about whether it had really affected either of them in a good way. And then, and so it was that, and then it just didn't seem like it fit my interests. Mm. But my advisor, whom I loved so much, and he was a literature professor. He wasn't a psychology professor. I studied 19th century fiction with him. And I have something to say about that in a minute. But he just kept pushing on me. You have to take it. You have to take it. Just give it a chance. You'll love it. And the minute I took it, it was like this was nothing like what I thought the course was going to be. We read experiments about how children learn to use words and about how their minds work. Like, I had no idea that's what psychology was, or that that's what it could be. I had no idea that from my background that I would love science as a field, that experiments were so exciting to read, and that thinking about how to design an experiment that would answer a certain question, that process was so absorbing, because that's not the kind of psychology I had been exposed to through my parents. So I don't know whether your listeners or whether people who listen to this show in Vietnam or internationally will know what I mean about that distinction, but for me it was a very important one. As it turned out, I came to love Freudian theory very much and think of it as the foundation of all contemporary psychological research. And I wrote about it in my most recent book. And so it ended up being part of what I know and think about, but not psychoanalysis itself, which is a very particular therapeutic process that I don't set much store by. But that didn't matter. And, you know, that wasn't the relevant issue. The one thing I will say about that professor, so I was a reader growing up, and I loved novels, and I still do. And for kids growing up and young people who feel trapped by the environment in which they grow up, who feel like these are not my role models, but what are my role models? Or this life, the life of their neighborhood or their home, is not for me, but I don't know what else there is. I would say read novels, because novels open the whole world to you. Whether you become a mathematician or a banker or a psychologist or a teacher or whatever it is you do, novels let you travel the world, and they let you meet people that from everywhere and from every era. I mean, from every time period. So for me, novels, even as a psychologist and a scientist, I would say novels are the key to finding out about the world outside of your own immediate experience, if that doesn't feel like enough for you.